Welcome back to the show. I'm Luke Thornton, and this is Talking College Football with Luke, featuring analysts Dan Pedraza and Anwar Thornton. This is a fan show, and your opinion counts. Please continue to provide your comments and feedback. We talk college football throughout the season. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show, and let other college football fans know about our show. With a new show posted every Thursday at 10 a.m. on YouTube. And we have a couple comments we're going to provide to you from our analyst who lives in Tokyo.
日本人の皆さんは、大学のアメフトのポッドキャストへようこそ。まず、私の同僚の新田さんへ伝えたいメッセージあるんですけど、もちろんチャンネルをフォローしてくれてありがとうございます。皆さんは大体大学のアメフトの興味はあまりないんですけど、これから、英語の練習としてこういうポッドキャストを聞いて、楽しめるなと思います。これからもよろしくお願いいたします。
I can speak for Dan and myself. We agree with what you
100%.
just said.
Hey, that's cool.
All right, guys. One of our viewers who says she loves the both of you guys. She asked if she can contribute to our show. It is Healthy Living with Ms. Renee the Barber, known for her culinary prowess, and is going to supply us with a weekly game day recipe for real college football fans, either just for you or if you're having friends over to watch the game. So let's take a quick look at what she prepared for our fans this week.
Pull away barbecue meatball sliders. Place your Hawaiian rolls in a lined 8x11 casserole dish. Add your binder, your seasonings, and moisture to the 1 pound ground turkey and mix. Now the recipe you can find below in the description box. Now let's get ready to form our meatballs. Since we have 12 buns, we need to make 12 meatballs, and we need to make sure our meatballs are the same size. Why? We want to keep everybody happy. Go ahead and run them in the oven at 400 for 20 minutes. Now let's make our garlic butter and prepare our buns. Layer the flavor with garlic butter, barbecue sauce, and cheese. Now go ahead and top our meatballs with flavor and then sprinkle with parsley. Run them back in the oven for 10 minutes. Let that cheese melt. Grab the edges of the parchment paper, transfer to the serving platter for presentation. Pull and place are optional. Enjoy!
You can follow her here on YouTube at Ms. Renee the Barber. Please provide your comments or feedback. And viewers, let us know what you think. Did you like that recipe? I can tell you guys, that
Yeah, it
looked
looks
yummy.
great. I got to
What
try
did
that
you
myself.
I look delicious.
think? All right.
Yeah, I'm about to be in the kitchen.
So I think that's a good idea. We give our viewers something new to look at each and every week. Okay, well, fellas, preseason is over, and we're off to conference play. There are so many good teams alive. Who could imagine that? This whole show is going to be dedicated to the top teams we've ranked. This is our fluid mid-season ranking special. So let's do a quick look back. Let's be brief. Talk about Oregon, Penn State.
Yeah, so this Oregon Penn State game was, in the end, it's what you kind of expected from James Franklin. You know, this is what he's kind of known for, and I don't like that. Like, James Franklin is one of those people that you sort of root for because he's a really good guy. He's had successful teams in the past, but the one thing he can't seem to get over is just winning this big game. I feel like Penn State's kind of a strong team, but they haven't really had the hardware to show for it. No Big Ten championships in 2016. They finally got over the hump a little bit last year, winning 2 games in the playoffs. But this was a game that Penn State really needed to win for their perception. Right now, like all these rumors are going on online about James Franklin. Can he win the big game? And really, the offense sputtered in this game. Really, and it wasn't just on Penn State's side. Penn State strong defense. Even held Oregon to the 3 points in the first half, and then Oregon jumps out to a big 14-point lead in the second half. Penn State comes back in the fourth quarter, ties it up, sends it to overtime, and then what happens? We saw exactly what happened in the Notre Dame playoff game last year. Drew Aller throwing a game-losing interception. So I just feel bad. My heart breaks for the Penn State fans out there. You just have to deal with this whole James Franklin can't win big games, and Drew Aller is not clutch thing, and it's just I don't know we got to wait to see them against Ohio State now. But
Yeah, I
that's my
agree with
thoughts on this game.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Washington, Ohio State. It was a great game. Washington had that very dynamic offense coming in, but that Buckeye defense is for real. People are saying Matt Patricia's defense is better than the championship defense last year, which is really saying something. I mean, those two linebackers, man, Reese and Styles, they make a big difference, a huge difference in how they get to it. And that Caden Curry coming off the edge is really great. McDonald up the middle. And then that defensive backfield is really strong. I've heard a couple other people talking about they think if Ohio State can actually be considered to win again this year, and back to backs, first time since Georgia. Dan, why don't you talk about the USC
I think
Illinois game?
had a lot to prove after last week getting destroyed by Indiana. And they showed it. They came back strong against USC on homecoming in Illinois. They won. The game was a lot closer. The score was a lot closer than the game actually was. It looked like Illinois was winning a lot, and at the end, they kind of tried to give it away until they came through with the clutch field goal at the end. They had some trickery. They showed that they are still one of those best teams in the Big Ten. There just may be that big a gap in between them and the next best. But there was some trickery in there. There was a nice little Philly special with Hank Beatty throwing it for a touchdown pass. But yeah, great way to respond to last week's embarrassment.
All right, so the next game that we have on our list is Indiana, Iowa. I'll take that one if you guys don't mind. The reason why I was so interested in that game is because when Indiana had that big blowout against your Fighting Illini, ILL, as you like to say, man, they were flying high. But anytime you go to Iowa City, a community of about 30,000 people, but a school that's about the size of about 50,000 students, and an absolute nut house of a stadium when you go there, that is going to be a raucous, rock fight football game, and that's exactly what Indiana got. Iowa delivered, but I'm going to tell you, I was so impressed that Indiana was able to handle the atmosphere and pull out a tough win. That last play where they took that safety, that was a little strange, but we're not a gambling show, so we're not talking about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's talk about the next game. The next game was TCU, Arizona State. AT, did you get a chance to check that one out?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of that game, I was the big one coming on here in the offseason, hyping up Arizona State, and it looks like they're finally catching their rhythm. Looks like they're finally catching their rhythm. Sam Levitt is finally looking, going back to last year, Sam Levitt. I saw Jordan Tyson get a lot more involved in this game, and that's what we expected out of that Arizona State offense. High-flying, dynamic quarterback wide receiver duo. You're replacing the production from Ken Scadaboo. I like their running back, Udo. And great win. TCU was undefeated going into this game. Had a lot of big hype. Josh Hoover. We all saw what they did against North Carolina. And, I think this is a win to get Arizona State back on their right trajectory. Great win for Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils.
Couldn't agree with you more. Hey, I'm going to talk about Virginia versus Florida State. And first off, hats off to Virginia, specifically quarterback Chandler Morris. I mean, think about it. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was the starting quarterback at TCU. Okay. He gets hurt and basically is out for like 6 or 7 games. Max Duggan replaces him. He takes TCU to the national championship. He bounces around. He ends up at Virginia, and the kid played his lights out. But Florida State, when we started looking at Tommy Castellanos, they played lights out. As far as the rankings are concerned, I can't knock Florida State because the one thing I look at them is that we are talking about kids who are 18 to 23 years old. They're still young, and you cannot tell me that Florida State did not have Miami on their minds when they went in that game. Now, with that being said, that Virginia team, there was no joke. They had that one loss where they lost on a last-second field goal. So, and now, final thing I have to say about that game, if you watch that game, and I would suggest you go back and you look at storming the field, if I were a student, that is how I would want to storm the field. That was classic, man.
Yeah, one thing I got to say about that storming the field. So one thing about Virginia, so in that east side of their end zone, it's all like grass. So there's no like seats. Everybody's just standing up, and it's super close to the field. And you could see that in that last play, in overtime when Virginia knocked down the ball. The students were ready to go. They were ready to rush the field. Everybody came down from the hill. They're right on the edge. And you can see immediately it was just a tidal wave of Virginia students. And that was awesome to see. I loved that.
That was completely awesome. So listen, I was trying to save something happened. We have some technical difficulties with Dan. So we got 2 more games to discuss on our schedule. We got Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. Now, Anwar, I'm going to let you talk about Ole Miss LSU because you brought the bacon to the breakfast last week when you talked about Lane Kiffin's daughter.
Yeah, sure. So, watching that game, saw the highlights, saw the score, saw the stats. One thing that really sticks out is, once again, LSU's offense. Kind of down bad. Once again, running for 56 yards on offense. Brian Kelly trying to make this seem like offense isn't the problem. You can't run the ball. All right, we see Garrett Nussmeier. I saw him throw in a double coverage. He's a great quarterback, and don't get me wrong, but he hasn't seemed to fix that gunslinger issue. I love a gunslinger quarterback, but he's just a little bit too reckless with it for me. However, let's give credit to the Ole Miss defense. I like Suntory and Perkins. I like what they've done. Brought in a transfer from LSU in the defensive backfield. Forgot his name, but he's making big plays. And one more thing to say about Ole Miss. Do they have a Heisman contender quarterback? This Trinidad Chambliss guy they have, dual threat quarterback. Actually doesn't really run the ball too much. He's a little shorter. Occasionally gets passes knocked down the line of scrimmage because of his height, but really can create in the backfield. He kind of reminds me of like a Bo Nix type, He's not like Haynes King, or he's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a run first quarterback. He is definitely, when he scrambles, he's looking down the field, and I really like that. He's got a very strong arm, and Ole Miss running game was great too. And once again, Lane Kiffin, he gets the last laugh. He's one of these guys where you either like him or you hate him, and I can definitely see why people hate him. I don't like every comment he makes, but he talked his talk and he walked his walk this weekend, so that's fun to see. And looking forward to checking his Twitter all tomorrow.
All right. I'm going to wrap this up talking about these segments, about a quick look back. I'm going to talk about Alabama, Georgia. And I said on last week's show that for some reason, Kirby Smart has Alabama living in his mind. His record against Alabama is 1-7. And we went through the big thing of saying that game was going to be at Athens and that maybe he was going to turn around. And guess what? Alabama did it again. Now, how do they do it? This quarterback, Ty Simpkins, I looked at him at the beginning of the season when they played Florida State. I was not impressed. He had all this big reputation coming in. And so anyway, at the beginning of the game, I'm watching this kid play, and I'm like, okay, he's a standard Alabama, a game managing type quarterback. He can sit in the pocket and pass and beat you. And next thing I know, I'm looking at this kid, and he's rolling out, he's moving, he has some really good throws, and all of a sudden he starts to run. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, whoa, this kid's got some skills here that we didn't know that he had. And he looked like a completely different quarterback. Now, he's no Milrow or anything like that, but he brought an aspect to the game that I didn't suspect. And I think that aspect also threw off Georgia. Who could imagine that Georgia would get down so fast to Alabama? I did. So anyway, that was a great game. All right, fellas, Dan is back. Dan, we just covered all of our look back games. We're getting ready to move forward. And what we're going to talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry. We didn't get to Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Dan, since you just hopped on, do you have anything on Georgia Tech, Wake Forest? All right. Just to let you know, Georgia Tech now leads the ACC. They're undefeated. That game, last play of the game, they score, they win. And I mean, they were down big time when they came back out and got it done. So you have to say, hey, Yellow Jackets, you're looking pretty good. We'll see where it goes from here because there's a couple games coming up this week that's going to tell us, what the real pecking order is going to be with that ACC. Fellas, it's time to move.
Before we move on, if you look at Georgia Tech's schedule, they like we talked about this last week, but they avoid Miami, they avoid Florida State. Their biggest game on the schedule outside of the Georgia game at the end of the year, which that game could be pretty interesting. Is this finally the year that Georgia Tech gets it done over Georgia? But yeah, I think that Georgia Tech is almost a lock for the ACC championship. It's crazy to say that, but looking at what their resume so far, I wasn't too impressed with Wake Forest win, but I think Wake Forest is kind of an underrated team. So I could see a path to the playoffs for Georgia Tech. All they need to do is win the ACC. That's going to be a tough task, but I could see them at least making the championship game.
Okay. Hey, I'm sending a ping to Dan. So if you could check it out on our chat. Okay. Let's do this quick discussion. And that discussion is it's midseason and coaches are getting fired. At the beginning of the season, or the second show that we did, we talked about Sam Pittman and Arkansas. So, Dan, we're talking about midseason coach firings. And specifically, we're talking now about um, Arkansas's coach, Sam Pittman, because we had done the show where we highlighted Tylen Green and the receiver, Myron Sharp, I think is his name. And it looked like Arkansas had something going. But now that Pittman's been fired and they're bringing back Bobby Petrino, which, you know, that's a story in itself, having been there, let go, and now being brought back. Obviously, somebody in the administration there at University of Arkansas likes him. And obviously, he was our offensive coordinator. Pittman's buyout wasn't that big. There was one little quirky caveat in there. If he had a winning record, they would have to pay him $3 million more in the buyout. I think it was $9 million versus a losing record, which they would only have to pay him $6. Well, I think they did right by him. He had a winning record and he was let go and they paid him the $9 million. But you know, that was just one of the ones I noticed. It just seems like, man, everybody's jumping on these coaches and we're talking about NIL. And all this is going to do is saying, okay, all of you coaches down the line from the FCC, the offensive coordinators, you're going to be looking at jobs sooner than what you normally look at. Do you guys have any thoughts on these midseason coach firings? It used to be you would wait to the end of the year, but with the money that's
Right.
in college football right
Yeah,
now,
I
I
think
can see where, you know, that's
Well, one thing about oh,
let Dan go on where he's been off.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dan. Okay. That's fair because I mean, let's face it. But as you can see, when we get around, Dan, when we get around to talking about our top 12, you're going to see how many teams actually have a shot. You know, when we talk about who's for real and who's not for real. Where I know you had something that you wanted to say about that because, you know, you're an Okie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So obviously we let Gundy go. So with these coach firings, I agree with what Dan said, and I see that some of them are, some schools are, because of this new era of NIL transfer portal, they're letting coaches go earlier, but also at the same time, these buyout numbers are getting ridiculously high. I know a lot of people think that just because these universities make millions of dollars, that they can just pay these buyouts super easily. However, we're talking big dollars here. And these schools don't actually have unlimited amounts of money sitting down to pay buyouts for these coaches, which in some cases, like specifically, I'm thinking of Florida right now. I'm sure a lot of the Florida fan base wants Billy Napier fired, but with this buyout, you just can't do it. And now that these schools are also paying players in this collective bargaining agreement, I think in a way it's actually keeping the coaches around a little bit longer, because now you got to pay the players and you got to pay all these coordinators. These schools don't just have all this money around just like that. That they're making money, but they just can't like pay $20 million up to $40 million to fire these coaches like they may want to. So I think in some cases, the collective bargaining agreement is actually keeping these coaches around a little bit longer in some aspects.
Well, I need to correct you on one thing, and it's a small thing, but there's no collective bargaining agreement with colleges right now. So, but
Well, they're about to start paying players.
well, that's paying players, but it wasn't under a CBA or anything like that. Okay, it's a court-ordered settlement on the House settlement. But with that said, I want to go back to what you commented on the Billy Napier situation. He has a unique situation. From what I understand, and viewers, please comment below if if you have to, it's up to you. Okay. Talking to Dan, he just sent me a little message. But his situation is I guess there's no AD currently, and apparently they're looking for a new president of the school. So the top administrator, or there's an AD and no president. It's something quirky where there's nobody really to pull the trigger and say, we want to pay X amount of dollars for you to walk away. So I don't see Napier getting fired simply because of lack of leadership at the top at the University of Florida. It's a quirky situation. So we'll see. We'll see what goes on. Dan is having some technical difficulties today. So we're gonna see if he can play through the pain, maybe go into the tent, talk to the trainers.
Yeah, my helmet got
might
knocked
take a
off, so I had
shot
to
or
sit out of
two and then
play.
come back in. We'll see what Dan is able to do. Yeah, the trainers they didn't take his helmet, so he can come back in and play. All right. Yeah, you only had to sit out of play. Okay. We thought you were going to go into concussion protocol. All right. Here it is. It's time to do the new top 12. This is our mid-season ranking reveal. So right now we think we know who's real, and we think we know who the wannabes are. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk about these rankings. Just to let you know, when we do the rankings, there are approximately 14 people who contribute to our weekly rankings. It basically, if you wanted to participate in the rankings, you'd have to fill out our form. We'd have to vet you and then let you in. And you could do that if you look below in the comment section. It tells you how to do it. You have to read the rules on how to rank. You can't just go willy-nilly. You have to follow the rules because of the technology involved. But we're going to start with number 12. We're going to talk about this team, but there's a twist to number 12. It's actually a tie. Okay? And we're going to show, after we've talked about the rankings, we'll show you who is at number 12. It is Texas Tech and Georgia are tied for essentially what would be our last of the top 12 rankings. Anwar, any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. So right now, Texas Tech, big win at Utah earlier in the season. Currently sitting at the top of the Big 12 standings. I think that the reason why we have them ranked so low is just because I don't think a lot of us have a lot of confidence in the Big 12 conference right now. And Georgia recently took that loss to Bama. If they had won that game, they would be top 3 easily. But Alabama at the time was ranked around 17, 18, and we've obviously moved Alabama up in our polls. Georgia got to drop below them, so we kind of ended up on that 12th spot.
Yeah, I mean, what Texas Tech, I mean, in this era of NIL, where if you have a big time donor, you can put together a team relatively quick. You still have to get the team to work together, but Texas Tech is, they haven't been this good since they had Blackman there in the early to mid 2000s. And they've got
Crabtree.
Huh?
Yeah. Crabtree.
Well,
Michael Crabtree.
Yeah, Mike. Oh, yeah, Crabtree. Blackman was at Oklahoma. Sorry about that, right?
Blackman was at Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Oklahoma State. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, since Michael Crabtree. So, um, was Kingsbury the quarterback then? Or was he
Harrell.
Graham
Yeah, I
Harrell.
think he was
Okay.
with the.
Anyway, so Texas Tech and Georgia, and you look at that Georgia. We know from recruiting, it's Texas, Oklahoma, it's Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia.
Georgia.
They're the big dogs for recruiting, so they got the talent. And Georgia lacks for nothing. Okay, they lack for nothing. So they're not a wannabe. They're a am, so to speak. All right, so let's talk about the next position because this is probably the most controversial because there's a tie again. Excuse me, I need to take a little drink here. So what would normally be our 10 and 9 position is a tie. The tie is Penn State and Alabama. Okay. Guys, when you look at this, and you started the show talking about Penn State has really played nobody. And they
Yeah.
lost a whiteout game. All right. We thought, and this is me talking, because you'll have your say. We thought at the beginning of the season that when Alabama lost to Florida State, they were done. We've made comments about that every week on our show, but maybe we were too fast to judge on Alabama, realizing that they're one of the top recruiting programs there are, and I think Penn State is an outstanding team. I'm not going to say that was a fluke, but when I watched that game, it was shades of the semifinals last year. What happened then? Just to remind people, Drew Aller threw an interception to Notre Dame, killing that drive and essentially killing their chances of making it to the championship game, putting Notre Dame in. Well, what happens again? Well, this year, Drew Aller throws an interception in instant overtime, right? Killing their chances of coming back to tie and taking it one step further. So, I don't want to knock them for that preseason schedule. All teams do it, you know. Anwar, what are your thoughts on this Penn State Alabama
Yeah,
tie for that those next positions?
sure. So, with Penn State, like you said, they are not in that first group of recruiting teams. I would put them in the second group. So in this second group, I would have Penn State, I would have
So if you
Notre
were
Dame, I'd have
tiering, you would say, yeah,
yeah, if I was tiering these teams, yeah.
yeah.
They're not at the Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia level. They're in the second rung, which includes teams like Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Clemson, like second rung, but they still have elite talent. Penn State is definitely a talented team. This year was actually kind of, and this Penn State team actually reminds me, going into the season, kind of reminded me a lot of what Clemson was, and it's just a veteran team. They're bringing back a lot of guys from their that deep playoff run last year, and I think that's why we had such high expectations for them at the beginning of the season. And like I said before, this Oregon game was huge for their reputation, and they just couldn't get it done. So why we have them 10th, we still believe in their talent and we still believe they can turn it around. But right now they have no outstanding wins and an okay loss. Like, I'm not even going to say it's a good loss because, it's their offense didn't look great and it was a whiteout game. That was a game they should have won and they needed to win and for their perception. And yeah, I really, for them, like I said, it comes down to this Ohio State game. That for me, as like if I'm looking at Penn State as an overview of the season, that Ohio State game is of the utmost importance. They, as an Ohio State fan, of course I don't want them to win. They need to beat Ohio State. Need to. But for now, we'll keep them at 10. We'll keep an eye on them. They've got a chance to turn it around, but yeah, for now, I think 10 is okay. And then Alabama, kind of the opposite of Penn State. We probably wrote them off a little bit too early. Ty Simpson looks great. Their wide receivers look fantastic. Defense looks great. But really, I think the thing with Alabama is that, like you mentioned earlier, Ty Simpson is looking absolutely fantastic right now. And once he gets he's one of these momentum type of guys where once he gets on a roll, it's just hard to break him out that rhythm. He can go 10 passes in a row, completing 10 out of 10. What they did against Georgia, going into Athens. One thing I can say, actually, this week, we haven't talked about this yet, but the number 1 and number 2 longest home winning streaks in the country are now broken. Number 1, longest home winning streak went to Georgia and Sanford Stadium, and number 2 was Husky Stadium in Washington, and both those teams lost. So now I don't know who has the longest home winning streak in the country. But, huge win on the road for Alabama. Jumped all the way from 17-8 and past Georgia, of course. I believe, we have them above Florida State, even though they lost. Overall, I would say Alabama's resume, I think, they might have a stronger win than Penn State. Florida State. I'm sure a lot of Florida State fans would have problems with our ranking. But for now, I'm okay with Alabama being above Florida State. And one more thing I want to say about Penn State. Outside of Oregon game, Penn State had the weakest schedule in the country. Like, out of all the FBS teams, 134 out of 134 for the weakest schedule. So, yeah, that's just why we can't have them any higher, even after a close loss.
Well, I want to take you back to something that you said. I'm not trying to go tit for tat with you, but you did talk about Penn State. It really, comes down to 2 more games. It's not just one game. It comes down to 2 games. Those 2 games and they're back to back. Okay. I'm going to give you the dates so that we get this straight. It's a 3-game stretch for Penn State. October 18th, they are at Iowa. Okay. Now, the last time they were at Iowa and they won, they came out being the number 2 team in the country. That was a few years ago. Then they got an open date, and then at night they will be playing. It might even be a big noon kickoff. I'm not sure. They get Ohio State, but here it is for them. Right after that, the following week, they had the Indiana Hoosiers. Okay?
Oof. Yeah.
And I'm going to throw in one more game that they have to win. That's November 22nd against a resurgent Nebraska Cornhuskers. Indiana's schedule is getting ready to take a big step up, and we'll see where they end up being. I wanted to talk about something, just outside. We only do the top 12. And the reason why we do the top 12 is because that's how many teams are going to make the playoffs. So of these top 12 teams we're talking about, which one of them, because they're not a group of 5 team included, which one of them is not going to make it, right? So we haven't done the bubble predictor yet. We're not there. But just outside in our 13 and 14 position were Florida State and Iowa State. And so as a result, we know, looking at this schedule, that either Texas Tech or Iowa State is going to be in it, right? Florida State plays Miami this week. We haven't talked about that. That is essentially Florida State's chance to get back in. I think Miami could suffer a loss and still make the top 12. I mean, that offensive line is huge. They're big, they're strong, and they're fast. So anyway, I'm sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, let's talk about the number 8 team, Texas. You got any comments on Texas? They look like they're getting it together. I think the bye came at a good time. Red River rivalry is getting ready to come up. So I didn't check their schedule. I'm sorry. to see when that game
Yeah, I
is.
know. Next week they got Florida. Need to win that game. But I think it'll be interesting actually. I think that's going to be a low scoring game. Texas coming out the bye week. Can Arch Manning? Okay, we saw what Arch Manning did against an elite defense like Ohio State. It was not great at all. Florida, maybe his defense isn't on that Ohio State level, but Florida has a solid defense. Their offense is the problem. I'm very interested in seeing how Texas and Arch Manning specifically bounce back up to the bye week against the talented Florida defense, against a good Florida defense. Great coverage, great secondary for them. And looking forward to see how this passing game goes for Texas.
Yeah, their schedule kind of helps them a little bit because we're going to talk about it with our next team. So let's move up to the number 7 team. I'm sorry. That's Oklahoma. Okay. Now you have to rank a team based on what they've done right now and where they are. Okay. Losing John Mateer to the broken hand on his throwing hand, his right hand, is big. We talked about this after the Michigan game. You specifically said you knew that Oklahoma could not continue to play the way they've been playing, where your leading rusher is your quarterback. Everything flows through him. That's natural for the quarterback, but he can't lead your team in rushing. And because it's the physical toll that you take in that position. And they're still ranked based off of where they currently are. But let's be honest, I don't think he's going to be back in 2 weeks for the Red River rivalry against Texas. That's going to knock them down. And then I'm looking at their potential schedule. It gets much more difficult at the end of the season than it has been so far. So, they've got South Carolina. They've got Ole Miss coming up in Tennessee. Their schedule is going to occur October 11th, 18th, 25th, and November 1st. Oh, you win those games, then you get lucky enough to get Alabama right after that. So it comes down to that schedule. That schedule's killer. It's going to kill them, especially if he's not there. So let's put Oklahoma in italics because they might not be at number 7 very long. Okay. All right. Number 6. Anwar, I'm going to let you talk about the number 6 team in the country.
Sure. So at number 6, we've got the Indiana Hoosiers. So with Indiana, I watched that game against Illinois. I was impressed. With Indiana, not a powerhouse team. In fact, one of the worst teams in the Power 5 overall, or Power 4 now. In a program history wise, they have reached new heights with Kurt Signetti. Because of the name Indiana Hoosiers, I think a lot of people would look at this ranking and be like, why are they there? I know they've got the win against Illinois, but why should they be there? Why should they be in the number 6 spot? You need to watch this team play. Watch them. They have a excellent defense. Okay. And they have they are fast. I know this kind of stereotype with Big Ten teams that they're more ground and pound, low moving, big offensive linemen. I would say that Indiana kind of plays like what many people would consider like SEC team or Ohio State, top of the Big Ten. They play fast, they play physical, and they deserve to be there. You even saw how they destroyed Illinois, and a lot of people after that game, they go back and Illinois is not that good anyway. But then what does Illinois do? They go out and beat USC the following week, which shows that Illinois was a good team. Illinois is a good team. They're not top 12, but they are definitely a solid top 20 team. So I think that win at home against Illinois was huge. And, coming back off what they did last year, making the playoffs, don't overlook this Indiana team. They're here. So
I'm going to take a little break talking about top 12 because, like I talked about earlier, just outside of the list was Florida State, Iowa State. There's another team that I had a chance to watch. I've watched twice now, and I don't think the people who vote in our poll are looking at this team enough, and that's Missouri. I'm looking at them. I think Missouri, I know they're not ranked right now, but they should definitely be on the radar when I'm looking at potential teams that could fall out of this, right? I'm looking, and the reason why I brought that up is because we're going to number 5. And our number 5 team in all the land is Texas A&M. Okay? The reason why I bring that up is Texas A&M has a date against LSU, followed by a Missouri game on November the 8th. And I think that we'll see. I mean, like you said, Texas A&M this year, they look like they might really have something. That was a big win, man, against Notre Dame that they got.
on the road.
Yeah, and on the road too. So, all right. Here we go. We're going to get to the cream of the crop. I don't have a problem right now with any of these teams these next 4 teams being number 1. So I'm going to state that right now. When I look, the separation for our voters between number 1 and number 4 is minuscule. So currently right now at number 4, we have Ole Miss. And that win over LSU is big. It seems like you talked about, what's his first name? Chapman's first name? The quarterback at Ole Miss?
Trinidad.
Yeah. Trinidad Chapman, right?
Chambliss.
Huh? Trinidad what?
Chambliss.
Oh, okay, Chambliss. Okay, Trinidad came from FCS. He won what was the equivalent of their Heisman for the FCS last year. A lot of teams knew about him.
It was D2.
Oh, he's D2. Okay.
D2.
Yeah, their equivalent of their Heisman. A lot of teams, from what I'm hearing now, were looking at this guy. But Kiffin's the only one that brought him in to be a quarterback. And, injury is not supposed to cause you to lose your position. It's always been that way until you perform the way this kid has been performing. So our number 4 team is Ole Miss. You got any comments on that, or you want to just move on to number 3?
Let's move on to number 3. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I will say one thing. You said that you'll be okay with rating any of these top 4 teams at the number 1 spot. I would be okay with ranking Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami at the number 1. I don't think I'd had Ole Miss at the number 1 yet, simply because, they struggle with Arkansas, struggled a little bit with Kentucky. So I don't agree. I agree with the number 4 spot, but I don't think I'd be okay with ranking Ole Miss number 1 yet.
Okay, fair enough. Viewers, what do you think? Do you think these final 4 teams, any one of them could be number 1, or do you think it's an elite group that's between the top 3 teams? And he just made his case for Miami being number 1. They're the number 3 team in our poll. But we're going to find out really fast where they are this weekend. Heck, they got Florida State. You win that, you blow them away, you win the game, and that's that. So there's no advantage as far as weather is concerned. Florida State travels well because that game's in Miami, right? I believe so.
Yeah.
So here we go. Everybody, I'm watching NBC Sports Saturday night after the Penn State game. One of my favorite writers is Nicole Auerbach, and she said whoever won that game was going to get her vote, and she's an AP poll voter as the number one team in the country. I listened to her, and I'm like, okay, I can see that. You got two extremely highly ranked teams playing. And especially if it was Oregon in a whiteout, could they be number one? Well, as it turns out in our poll, separated by 3 points, they're number two. And the number one team in all the land, according to Talking College Football with Luke, featuring Anwar and Dan, is Ohio State. Let the debate begin. Mr. Debater, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And
So
let me ask you this.
like I
And
said
I
before,
normally don't ask people who they voted for, but I'm going to ask you, who did you vote for in this one for number one?
I did have Ohio State, voted Ohio State as number one team, and I'm like, listen, I'm not putting like we've all known that both me and Luke are Ohio State fans, but I really think we tried to put our bias aside for this one. I think that this road win for Ohio State, on the road at Washington, was definitely. I think a lot of people look at Washington and, they lost DeBoer, lost a lot of that team to the portal, but Jed Fish has came in there and really is starting to turn that program around. They really had an explosive offense, putting up 59, and they're had one of the highest points per game rating coming into this Ohio State game. And Ohio State shut that dynamic offensive down. Washington has a great quarterback, Damon Williams, and he did great with this Ohio State game, but Ohio State locks down in the red zone. Ohio State's defense, you don't even want to try to score on them in the red zone. This is one of the best red zone defenses I've seen in a long time. With Oregon, I think I could see a situation where Miami could be number one, but I think the debate really comes down to Ohio State and Oregon. If somebody wanted to put Oregon number one, I would have zero problem with that. Huge win on the road at Penn State, and really, they look like the better team. Like, if you watch that game, I know it came down to double overtime, but Oregon looks like much more of a overall strong team. Penn State has a big weakness with their receivers. Their running game didn't look great. Oregon's running game looked great. They have multiple running backs, and they're all young. You got DeCorian Moore, a wide receiver. You have Dante Moore, coming back for his third year. Had the year to sit under Dylan Gabriel, learn, and he looked really adjusted to this offense. Man, Oregon looks tough, and their defense, Mateo Uyunglele, Dylan Tieneman, elite defense too. So when I'm looking at these teams with Ohio State and Oregon, and especially with Oregon, I have seen no weakness on Oregon. I don't know if you could call this a weakness for Ohio State. Their offense is I don't think they've opened up the playbook for Julian Sand right now, so their offense hasn't looked explosive. But Oregon's offense does look explosive. I think it is neck and neck, a nail biter between who you'd have for the number one spot, Ohio State or Oregon. And, I could see that flipping around. If somebody wanted to put Oregon at number one, I would have no problem. But I think Ohio State's wins against Texas, especially going on the road against the number 2 home winning streak against Washington, huge win for Ohio State. And Yeah, I would still have Ohio State number 1. Barely over Oregon.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Our top 12. Let's just go through it. We got a tie at the bottom with Texas Tech and Georgia, and another tie with Penn State, Alabama. Number 8, we have Texas. 7 is Oklahoma. 6 is Indiana. Top 5 are Texas A&M at 5, Ole Miss at 4, Miami 3, Oregon 2, and the Buckeyes of Ohio State University at number 1. So I want to tell you that we enjoy doing this show. It's a lot of fun for us. We get to connect. We get to talk. We're college football fans, just like you. We get to talk college football. And by the way, we do it for free. But we need you to subscribe to our channel. Not just subscribe. We need you to watch the entire program, or even the snippets that we put out, because that's going to determine how long we can stay on the air. So again, this is Talking College Football with Luke, featuring analyst Dan Pedraza and Anwar Thornton. This is a fan show. Your opinion counts. Please continue to provide your comments and feedback. We talk college football.
Chasing dragons, dragons round my head. Robbing people, but I'm an honest man.
That's my wife. Hold on. Let me finish wrapping this up. Anwar, can you talk for a few seconds while we're recording?
Okay,
Go
I'll
ahead.
talk a little bit. I guess. Oh, like you said, subscribe to the College Football Show. Right now we're trying to increase our viewer base in Japan. Not a lot of college football fans out here. But yeah, thanks from our Japanese subscribers. I hope you guys enjoyed the message at the beginning of the show.
Sorry about that. Just to let you know, that was my wife. And my wife is not just my wife, but she is Anwar's mom. So he knows I had to take the call. Don't forget, we brought you something new this week in the show. And that was the recipe from Healthy Living with Miss Renee the Barber. Hey, our show is going to be released Thursday at 10 a.m. Watch us every Thursday at 10 a.m. Talk to you later.
Peace.